Hey folks, you're on the 75 ohm channel. I have a very special guest with me today. His name is Hollywood, and we're going to play basically 20 questions. Hollywood has been a broadcaster, an engineer, and most importantly to me, a teacher and a mentor. And most of you within this ham radio community do know him personally. So without further ado, I want to hand it over to Hollywood.
Yay! It's not quite tank radio, but it's, Hollywood radio.
Awesome. Well, I've got some questions lined up for Hollywood,
It's
and
like
I
Radio
really
Shack. You've got questions, we've got answers.
excellent. We're just gonna dive right into this. Hollywood's done some radio voice, some radio engineering, and some teaching. And before any of this, I really wanted to start with the most important question, I think. Hollywood, can you share a super vivid memory from your childhood that sparked your interest in radio? Was it a broadcast, a particular piece of equipment, or a person, or a voice? What was it?
That's a great question. I had to think about that for a moment. You got me. I would say, you know what? Vivid is growing up with the boss radio in town in Boston, which was WRKO. And RKO came from RKO, General Tire, and theater, right? And um, and that was part of Bill Drake's format for Boss Radio. KHJ in Los Angeles was one. CKLW in Canada is another one. So there were a bunch, and I know you've all heard the format, but that's what I grew up with, and that was sort of life changing because all the kids were listening to it, kids older than me, and while everybody's in the play yard at school and we're at recess and we're talking fourth grade. I snuck my little transistor radio into school, and there I am in the snow, and I'm listening to WRKO, but I'm not just listening to the music, I'm listening to the format. And I've got my notebook and I'm writing down what songs were played, what did the DJ say, what were the commercials to the second, the whole hour, the programming clock, as we say. So that was I got bit by the bug and I've had this rash ever since.
The RF rash never really goes away.
No, no, it's deep.
That's great. Um, I know you had a transistor radio as a kid. How many times did you take it apart? Were you
Oh
also
boy.
were
I
you also building them?
I broke more radios than I want to admit. But that's how I learned how to fix them. You take them apart, you see what's in them. When you're a kid, you look at this little thing that you hold in your hand and voices come out of it and you go, it's a magic box. This is great. Ooh, it's got a pen light battery. And with the magical mind of a child, you go, what happens if I put the battery in backwards and I talk into it? Does it come out the air? Does it work in reverse?
Right.
You know,
Logically as you would.
because you don't know any better, right? But that's the
Right.
thing. That's the thing. And then you take it and you turn it and you go, hey, the signal's gone. I'll turn it back. Ooh, there it is again. But when it's gone, I can hear New York. How does that happen? And that's it. The seed is planted. And then once you get it, that you can't ever stop. It's almost a disease, but it's a good disease. You want to see what makes it tick. Why is it so?
Gotcha. How many crystal sets did you build before you got into ham radio?
Oh, half a dozen.
That's pretty
Probably half a
great.
dozen. My first one was like everybody else's. It was the Radio Shack, maybe 10 and 1 or 20 and 1, 30 and 1. And it eventually got to the 101 one year for Christmas. But you know what? I had a crystal. I was lucky. I did the crystal radio thing, and I had a AM station, not very popular, but down the road, across the river from me, and it was probably 5 miles as the crow flies, and it was a daytimer. So there was nothing on until they flipped the switch at sunrise. Well, guess what? It was so loud because it was a directional antenna that it would excite my crystal radio loud enough that it would drive a speaker. And that was my morning alarm clock. I didn't care what the music was. It just that it boom, it came on its own and it woke me up and you get ready for school.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's like the it's like the FT8 10-meter alarm clock when the band opens
Right.
up, you know.
Right.
I've set that once or twice.
Yeah. But some crystal radios were better than others. Some were just absolutely terrible. But you know what? When you live close enough to the big city, it doesn't matter. You can use, a piece of wire and a diode, and it'll pick up everything. So it was great fun. I was in the right place at the right time.
Speaking of the right time, that was a very interesting time that you grew up in. What how to say this? What radio personalities do you remember the most?
Oh, Dale Dorman. Dale
Okay.
Dorman at RKO. My mentor was J.J. Jeffrey. I ended up working for him. There's a whole story there, and we'll get into that if you like. Quack, quack. I don't know if anybody heard that. That was my cell phone. That's my friend who just texted me. The quack, quack is the same quack, quack that Don Imus used when he read the time at WNBC. Okay?
Whoa.
So I'm like that. I can't help it. When the thunderstorm comes and I get the alert from NOAA, it goes dun dun dun.
That's pretty great. Did any of those radio personalities is there like a stark difference in between like the radio personality aspect and like the engineer side of
Oh my God, yeah, night and day.
Are there like drummers and pipers basically?
Oh yeah, they're worlds apart. Worlds apart. I'm an odd duck in the sense that I'm an artist. I have the broadcast side of it. I like to compose stuff. I like to, not music, but I mean, put the show together. But then I also have the engineering side. And usually that's not the case. Most announcers, artists, they don't know anything about engineering and they don't want to know it. And that's fine. That's fine. That's why you have an engineer in the studio running things in a big setting. So it actually worked very much to my advantage, having been in both sides of the aisle. So I can communicate with both of those personalities. Engineers are black and white. It is or it isn't. There's no wiggle room. And the program director comes down the hallway and he says, "I want more punch. I want it louder. I want more bass. I want to sound as big as God." And the engineer goes, "I don't know what that means. I have my little pocket protector and my glasses on. And do I turn the knob to the right or to the left? What do you want?" So it worked for me. And then fixing stuff, because I did on the air, I know what the talent, when the talent says, we're hearing a delay in the cans, the headphones, can you tweak that? Absolutely. Let me listen. Oh yeah, it's very obvious. I don't know how you put up with this all this time, so yeah.
Did you ever visit a radio station as a child or meet somebody in the industry?
You know what I did? Yeah, I did. Let's see. I was, before I could drive, so probably 15 and a half or 16, my folks drove me from Boston to the middle of the state out to Worcester. And I volunteered to be a radio engineer, not transmitter wise, but audio stuff. And I produced a live sports talk show, and it was called Athlete's Ear. And they had call-ins, and this is almost like a PBS radio station, but it was on the FM dial, and it was WICN for those in the know. It was a lot of fun, and I got to play with the equipment. And it turned out my dad knew one of the guys who had a show there, and they were looking for people to volunteer, and along I come, and yada, yada, yada. And then I took a class while I was in high school at the local college. And they, of course, had a little 10-watt FM station. And I got my restricted radio telephone permit, which is nothing but a CB license that you fill out, but it allows you to go on the air. I still have that ticket. It's in my files. I still have it from 1978. So it's like my prized possession, one of many. But you got to spin records. Didn't sound very good. You didn't know what the hell you were doing, but it's a training thing. It's, you're at school. And I didn't attend that college, but I took it as a summer class, and it was a lot of fun. And that also got the bite from the bug. And then you go from there, and you want to, either behind the mic or in front of the mic, something. And it was a blast. Just an absolute blast.
Did you have access to ham radio as a child?
No, that's the funny thing. I didn't. And that's when we talk about the mentoring side of this, that's why it's really important for me to pass the baton, because I struggled with that aspect of it. The broadcasting came easy. You wouldn't think so. You'd think it'd be the opposite. But the broadcasting came easy because it's structured, it's school related, you get a job, you work your way up the ladder. The ham radio was like the secret society, and you had to have a password and a secret handshake, and you had to know somebody. And I didn't know anybody. So it just so happens that I met who was one of my many mentors. His call sign was NC1V, no current, 1 volt. And that was Dr. Ritchie. And Dr. Ritchie, I met through CompuServe. Okay? Going way back with the dial-up BBSs. And he was building a solar car. And I went, wow, this is really cool. So we're emailing, texting back and forth, whatever, through CompuServe. And he says, well, why don't you come up and visit? Turns out, small world, he had a shop at the National, what was left of the building, the National Radio Factory in Melrose, Massachusetts. I ended up working for him. And so, he got me into the ham radio thing. He was an extra, and he was a VE. And he was like, we can play with 1,500 watts. So, if you're at all interested, and I'm like, yeah, show me how. And, within a month I had my tech, and I was a no-code tech for a long, long time, too long. That's a whole show in itself.
It is. It really is. I don't want to touch that show. Anything else about childhood and radio that you want to add? Radio really started. The first seed was getting a walkie-talkie for Christmas, and what frequency was that?
Channel 14.
Okay,
Channel 14 on the CB band. That was only one crystal, and I remember, using it. You get a pair of them, and you get your buddy to talk to you, and then the next thing you know, you're on a bicycle. Let's see how far we can go. Well, that lasts about a day, and then the 9-volt battery goes flat, and you can't get another 9-volt because you can't drive yet. So you start to, what can I substitute? Well, I have a slot car set. That's up in the attic, but I haven't used it in ages. Well, it's got a rheostat. It's got one of those little, you turn the dial and the voltage comes up. How about if I clip lead instead of the 9-volt battery? Well, I don't have a meter at the time. Okay. So, you listen, it sounds about right. It's humming, and the thing's humming like crazy, of course, because it's not a regulated supply.
Right.
But you turn it up and you get, that sounds about right. Hello, testing 1, 2, hello, right? And
Yeah.
turn it up a little more. A little, if a little bit is, it's like meds. If a little bit is good, a lot is better, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you turn the control up and you're not quite satisfied. So it, every day it goes up a little higher, a little high. And then you add some wire to because the whip is only, 6 feet tall and you're inside the bedroom. Well, what if I have a piece of wire and I wrap it around and I chuck it out the window and I'm on the third floor? Maybe it'll go further. I mean, you see where this goes, and I'm not the only person to have done this. So,
Oh no, I
right?
had, I had wire hanging out of my my bedroom window as a child.
You bet. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, one day, flash forward now, the control has been advanced so far that there's wisps of smoke coming out.
Oh no.
And I'm yelling like a banshee. Hello, hello, testing, 1, 2, hello, hello, hello. Well, didn't I hear this voice, this very official, and oh man, I thought it was, the end of the world. Get off the frequency. This is a restricted frequency, you know? Boom. Off I go. It turns out that I had pumped so much voltage in, I must have been transmitting on a harmonic. And I don't know where it was, but there was a two-way radio that was being used to give traffic reports
Excellent,
for
Hollywood.
WBZ radio. And there was the plane going over my house, and I was interfering with his two-way, not the aviation to the airport, but to him to the station.
Sure.
Magnificent. Well, wouldn't you know, I ended up working for BZ. Years later, I was producing at BZ Radio. I'm like, what a small world. I mean, great how stuff happens.
Jason in the chat, KB1WSC says, I guess earlier we were talking, he wanted to know WAAF. Was that?
Oh, yeah.
Was that
AAF 107, I think it's 107.1. I didn't listen to AAF. That was not the station. It was WICN. We were on the other end of the dialing. It was 90.3 or 91.5. I can't remember. But anywho.
Charlie November?
Yeah.
WICN?
WICN, correct. Yeah. It was a non-commercial PBS type, NPR type station. AAF, for those that don't know, is on, the transmitter is on, I think it's pronounced, I want to say Asney Bumpskit in a hill in Worcester. And that is the site where, I'm drawing a blank. I can see him. Inventor of FM. Help me out, Ziggy, anytime.
Oh, no, you got it. It's your show.
Yeah. Major Armstrong. Major Edwin Howard Armstrong.
Excellent.
That was one of his sites. That was W1XOJ in the mid 40s. And that was part of the Yankee Network. And the Yankee Network also was WNAC 680 in Boston, which became WRKO. I mean, it's amazing how the stuff, and I know it's a family. You keep meeting the same people at a different station, which is why you never say anything negative. You never burn bridges behind you, but it's, there's only a small group of us that work in the industry, and I'm out of it now. So, but it's funny how, the paths keep crossing.
Sounds like you guys kind of all skated on thin ice around each other professionally all day.
Well, in a sense, there's that, because it is, and I'm using air quotes, showbiz. But most of the people under the roof are not air talent. So they don't have the big egos that comes with that territory. They're there for the business side of it. They're in sales, management, whatever it is. And so, we all get along. It's all good. It's all good. So I was blessed. I worked with some of the best people that didn't have enormous egos. Check your ego at the door when you walk in, one of those. I was very lucky. And a lot of them took me under their wing. I mean, for people in the Boston area that know the late Norm Nathan, I used to produce for him at BZ, and there was one night where I didn't have any gas in my car to get home, and he let me siphon fuel out of his car.
What a guy.
I mean, can you imagine Air Talent doing that? Just, yeah. Great stuff.
So break into your radio profession. What year was
Sure.
that? 83?
Yeah, 83 was my first gig up in New Hampshire, and that was while I was in school. So I'm at WECB at school at Emerson. We have two radio stations. There's WECB and WERS. And ERS is the one that everybody knows about. They're on the air. ECB is has no transmitter. It's only heard in the dorm. It's like if you have a drive-in theater. If you're lucky enough to have one, you tune it in on your car and your AM radio. As soon as you leave, it's gone.
Did they plumb the building with that lossy or leaky coax?
No,
they fed.
No? They fed the RF into the AC mains.
Oh, excellent.
Right, so it only has to go from the plug to the radio.
Perfect.
And 4 watts would cover the whole 10 floors.
Oh, sure.
Of each dorm. It was great. But the beauty of that is that WECB claimed to be, and I think this is accurate, is the first commercial college radio station in the country. So we got to sell spots, and it was a microcosm of the real world. And I forgot where I'm going with this. So I guess that's where you asked me about the first job. So as I'm doing the on-air thing at ECB and working my way up the corporate ladder, if you will, I get one of my buddies who's at the station says, "Hey, you know what? I've got a gig in New Hampshire, and they're looking for new talent. Would you like to drop them an air check?" An air check, for those who don't know, is a resume tape you make of yourself. And I said, "Yeah, sure. What I got to lose, right?" It's a 50 kilowatt FM. Happens to be the #1 station at the time in New Hampshire, and you can hear it in 3 states: Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and parts of Maine. Parts of Maine, actually. So maybe 4 states.
What a coverage!
Yeah, it was huge. And I got the gig, and I worked for 2 years on the weekends. I did the midnight to 6 a.m., which was horrific.
You got to start somewhere.
When you're young, you have boundless energy, and they paid for my fuel. They paid for my gas to get there. I didn't make any money, but it was a blast. Well, let me tell you, there's no rush in this world. When you hit that on-air button, and you know that 50 kilowatts has your voice, and it's hitting 3 states. Man, there's nothing like that.
You're a little mindful as to what falls out of your mouth, right?
It's completely radically different from ham radio. Completely radically different. You're in the spotlight. You're on stage, and you read liners and you try to make it sound cohesive and entertaining, and give the hog report. Talk to the truck drivers. Eastbound and down. I played that all the time.
So, did you drop your friend's name on the referral, or was it just like an open
Oh, he was still there. That was Frank, and he was still there, and So they
Did Frank's name help get you the spot? I guess is what I'm trying to get. Like, was he?
Yeah, because at that time there were 3 of us, I being the third, all from Emerson and all from WECB, working and the station was WOKQ, 97.5. And so we were all in it. It was a blast. And at that time we had people at WBCN, not on the air, but behind the scenes in Boston. We had people at WCOZ, which became Jammin' 94.5. We had people at KISS 108. We had WFNX. There were a bunch of us, and it was good times. Good times.
Can you describe like the scene when you were when you were in the studio proper, like the equipment, the paneling, the
Think of the
just the
space shuttle.
just
Think of the space shuttle. Oh
okay.
yeah, oh yeah. It's like for those that had the store Tweeter, etc., or stereos and such, whatever. Right? You walk in and it's all lights and they're all blinking, and you sit in the big chair, and you know that the guy who his show just ended. Well, he's the star. You're just doing the overnight gig. Your job is just to keep people listening until the sun rises when
Until
the
the
alarm
next show
clocks.
starts.
Thank you. That's all it is. Right, right. They don't go out of their way to listen to you. You're just there to keep the thing
You've
on
got a
the air.
job, right?
Yeah.
You've got an actual job to do.
Right, right. And you're also the only person in the station. That's it.
Oh, pee breaks must have been just absolutely horrendous.
If you don't know, if you hear, let's see, one of the longest songs was Michael Martin Murphy, "Wildfire." If you hear a country station playing "Wildfire," you know it's a bathroom break.
That's pretty great.
And there was no automation. That's the other
Right.
thing too. Everything was live. It was all done not vinyl, but on a cartridge. Which, for those that don't know, it looks like an 8-track tape. It plays one song, and then the song ends, and it recues the tape right to the beginning again. So when you hit the button, it's instantly on the air. It fires a tenth of a second later. So it's all cart, and it's all live. There's no automation. There's no computers. There's no, you can take a break and, go make dinner or whatever in the microwave and come back 10 minutes later. No. You only have the 3 minutes between each song. That's it. And in that 3 minutes, you've got to compose yourself. You've got to figure out what you're going to say, what you're going to read, follow the log, check the log, make sure all the spots roll. God forbid if the tower lights go out, call the FAA, because Pease Air Force Base is 3 miles downrange. Yeah, there's a lot to it.
So pretty much you started at working at the station, doing actual voice broadcasting was like pretty much
Right.
the pinnacle starting point, we can say. Now, how did you slide over into becoming such the equipment operator, I guess would be a polite way to say that, like fixing radios and such. How did that come about?
Yeah, that's great. So I always wanted to see, what makes it work. And this is now you're in a situation where it's not 100 milliwatt walkie-talkie. Remember, there's no ham radio quite yet, right? So
Right.
we've gone from 100 milliwatts to 50 kilowatt.
Skipped over everybody else.
Skip over all that other little stuff, Let's So you look around and you go, well, it's all car, and you've got to clean the heads, every hour, and there's maintenance involved and like that, and it's fun. And one day the engineer comes in, the real engineer, and he's doing an alignment on a cart machine. And between songs, you're looking over his shoulder, yakking in the other room. Hey, how does this work? And he's got the pattern on the scope. And, he sort of becomes a mentor. While he's working, you're giving him the 50 questions. And it's fun. It's fun. And I made friends doing that and ended up getting tours of other studios and other stations and other transmitting facilities. Because usually the transmitter is not where the station is. They're separated.
Right. So you never had any kind of direct access or control of the transmitter.
Not till later.
Not till later.
Not at OKQ, but later on, yes.
Okay. So what was the first visit to the transmitter like?
Well, visit to the transmitter at OKQ, it was right down the end of the hall. That was a unique situation. That transmitter was on site. So you got to see the blinking lights and see the thing run. And for those who've never seen one, think of an industrial size, like a refrigerator that you would see in a hotel, in the kitchen of a hotel. Big stainless steel box, only it's not stainless steel. There's many pictures online. You can look it up. And it's nothing but an amplifier. It's just a linear. The actual transmitter fits in a rack. and it's 18 inches across by maybe 6 or 7 inches tall. And that's it. That's where the signal comes from. And the big box with the tube in it, that's just a linear. But it was all right there. And so I got to see it and like that. And, that's just one aspect of it. But later on, you get to, like, I think I got a tour of RKO while I was still in high school. And I knew somebody, I don't remember who it was, but I got the tour of the engineering department. And I remember seeing the audio processing unit, which today we would call an Optimod, or, there are other companies that make them. But back then, they were all made by hand by the engineering department, and it was highly secretive what was in the box, because that was their signature sound. That identified the sound of that station. So, there was all kinds of crazy, and I'm looking at it, and the guy kept saying, well, let me show you over this. And I'm fixated. I'm like, show me this box. He's like, well, yeah, okay, you're not a spy. You don't work for anybody else. I can show you a little bit, and this is what it does. But I can't get into great detail. But I wanted the detail, and that's maybe became the impetus of me, looking and playing with audio for the sake of making it sound better and bigger and smoother and richer and, all of the above.
Now, at that time, was that an FM or AM transmitter?
That was AM.
Okay.
RKO is 680 AM.
And AM, let's see, the shift to FM was sometime in the 70s, I think. Would you say AM was struggling at that time or not at all?
Yeah. AM was really big in the late 60s through the early 70s. And then FM had always been around since the 40s and 50s, but it was sort of like, underground radio was experimental, and then it was album rock and like that. It became really mainstream and especially a threat to AM's top 40 because it had better sound. There's no denying it. And at that point, AM went primarily over to talk radio format. And then shortly thereafter, the FMs all started competing with each other, and that is called the Loudness Wars. They kept turning the processor higher and higher, and to the point of almost clipping and distortion. It was just disastrous.
Oh my gosh! What?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's another show too.
No kidding. Oh wow! I'm super intrigued now. They were peaked and tuned to the hilt. Yeah.
Yep. Back in the really early days of radio, we didn't have a processor at all. You had a board op that would adjust the levels. So if somebody's playing a piano and they hit a key a little too loud, you have to manually turn it down. Otherwise, the transmitter clips and there's a power outage in the town. It's not just that it distorts. I mean, it screws the transmitter. Oh. And maybe draws too much from the grid, and it blows a fuse. So they would run their modulation at like 40 and 50% on average, nowhere near the 100% we run now, because they had to do it manually. So you had to give headroom.
Yeah, they need.
Tubes came along, and engineers built very easy compression circuits to sort of level things out. And then in the 80s, really, there are two people. It's Bob Oraban and his last name is Greg, Gregg. It's Greg Labs. I can't remember what his first name is, but you'd think that's his first name, but it isn't. And so those two, and they ended up working with each other. And they designed processors that didn't work on one single band. They did multi-band. So you would have, in one box, you would have a processor for the bass, the lows, the mids, the upper mids, and then the treble. Maybe 5 bands. The first ones were 3, then they became 5. And the more bands, the merrier. It's like a suspension on your car. The more intricate the parts are on the car, the better it's going to handle the road. And it became to the point where the equivalent is they're building, Formula One race cars to do that with the audio, to
Right.
make it just jump out of the speaker.
Absolute audio perfection.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But
Right.
it became such a powerful tool and it was not something that the engineering department was building on their own that was unique to that one station. It was an over-the-counter box, and there were presets in it, but you could change the presets. And there were modifications galore. There were underground, articles, whatever, in the periodical section of the rags among broadcasters. You could change this component, change this part, and it will do something a little better than the guy down the street. So you had the leg up on that station if you were competing in the same market. You'd be just that half of a tenth of a dB louder than them, or cleaner, or whatever it is. But it became out of hand because it is actually called the Loudness Wars. That's the title.
Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. I've never heard about that era in time. How long was that? How long did the Loudness Wars last? Was there some kind of regulatory thing that they all got
No,
stamped with?
there is no regulatory. In a way, it's still going on. It really started in the mid 80s. It's still going on to some extent. You will hear it when CDs started being mass produced. They had beautiful headroom. They sounded fabulous. And I don't care what the recording was, whether it was rock and roll or jazz, or it didn't matter. It sounded great. And then somebody figured out, hey, we're going to compress and clip the living you-know-what out of it. And it's going to be louder than anybody else's CD. And it got to the point where there's no headroom anymore. I mean, a CD will do like 100 dB of signal to noise ratio, but they're only using, they're feeding 99% in, and there's only 1% of headroom now. They're squishing it so much.
What is that trick that they use in FM? It's just kind of they're setting the compression
Right.
all the way to basically the limit. So
Right.
every little pin drop or
Right.
elephant fart's all at the same
Right.
volume.
Right. If for those that if you go online and you listen to the air checks from WABC in New York, 77 ABC in the 70s, I mean, that was notorious, and they did a good job of it, but it was so much in your face. And then, of course, you add reverb to it because that fills in the gaps.
Always got to add a touch of reverb, no matter what
And
you're doing.
and boy, did they have the reverb. It was the size of a huge mattress, and it was at the transmitter. It wasn't, so it's in a quiet room in the basement, and it's the same system as what you have in a guitar amp. It's a spring, and
Unbelievable.
yeah. But you see that, and that's like Phil Spector and the wall of sound. If you add layers and layers and layers of not just instruments, but echoes on each instrument, they all fill in the gaps, and you almost don't need a compressor then, because all of the levels are supporting each other.
Interacting with each other, yeah.
Yeah, it's like looking at a road surface, right? That you're driving down, and you've got a pothole. That would be a normal recording. And what this thing is doing is it's filling in the potholes because there's so many harmonics going on. That's part of the reason why people like an audiophile likes to listen to tube gear versus solid state gear. Tube gear, when it distorts, it creates this is a whole class I could give you guys. Tube gear gives even harmonics, okay, which are pleasing to the ear. And a transistor gives you odd harmonics, which are displeasing. Okay? So when a transistor distorts, it's like fingernails on the chalkboard. You hear it, it's grungy. But when a tube amp distorts lightly, it's a soft knee, and it's actually pleasurable. And there's a whole psychoacoustics, again, another show, that I learned from one of the great engineers that women hear very differently than men do. And I know you're all saying, yeah, I know.
Oh, it's very true.
She
I've
keeps
got
saying,
proof.
you don't hear me. Honey, you don't hear me. You don't ever hear me. You know, men have selective hearing, male selective hearing. Well, you know what it is uh, when um, when you're a teen male, you predominantly prefer to hear bass frequencies more than anything else in the spectrum, and you want it to thump. You don't want distortion, but you want a loud, solid driving bass note. Conversely, women don't like that. They find that very objectionable. What they want to hear is the high frequencies, and they want to hear even harmonics distributed in the high frequencies. So we're talking 8 kilohertz up to 20 kilohertz.
That's way up there.
So if you are an audio engineer and you're creating a box, a signature box for your station, and you have a female targeted audience, you want that box to be able to create artificially and fill in the gaps those even harmonics. It's like somebody tugging on your earlobe, like Carol Burnett used to do, right? And it's subliminal. You don't even realize why you like the sound of the station, but yet you're drawn into it. It's a fascinating thing of psychoacoustics and why we hear what we hear and what we enjoy hearing. And, how does that whole thing work?
Sounds like there's plenty of conspiracies that you could drum up about rival stations and audio acoustic
Yep.
audio acoustic warfare, kind of, in a way.
It absolutely was, no question about it, because it was part of the what we call imaging. Okay, how you your promos, how you sound, but then it's how you technically sound also. Part of the other situation too, and this is gone now. Primarily in broadcasting, has become mush. It's garbage now. I can't stand it. I can't listen to it.
I don't know where it is.
I know. We used to, on an FM station, and well, in AMs too, but I'm going to go with the audio side of it. On an FM, you were required by the FCC to do what we call a proof of performance. And that was an annual thing. And that includes you feed a tone oscillator into the board, and then it goes through the entire chain, out the transmitter, and you take readings of distortion, of all kinds of different levels to make sure that it's compliant from 50 hertz to 15,000 hertz. We don't do that anymore. It's optional. If you're a classical station, you probably would do that if you can afford to do that. Most of these stations, they're going belly up. And if you're a rock station, you really don't care, because you just want it loud. You don't need that super high quality that a jazz station or a classical station might require. I'm not throwing rock under the bus. It's a different market.
You kind of paint a like a broadcast wasteland kind of era that we kind of live in right now. This is the aftermath of what happened.
That's right. We've crested over the peak, and now we're on the other side. And the stations are just trying to stay afloat. That's why iHeart and all the big guys, they're all firing people left and right. These are seasoned professionals, and they're all getting the early retirement parachute and get out. And then when they let you go, this is something else nobody knows unless they're in the business. When they let you go, they don't let you say goodbye to the audience. They escort you out, usually with a police officer, so that you don't say anything against the station.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That brings me to my next question. What kind of run-ins with like actual offenses that you've witnessed or been part of, like for FCC compliance, or maybe somebody cussed on air? Like, how bad has it gotten that you recall?
Well, there were times at it was another station. It was another AM in Boston that I worked for as an engineer, and there were there's always the 7-second delay. and you might have to get the reel to reel out and find the spot on there that, maybe the first syllable of the cuss word went out. The producer caught most of it, but maybe didn't, and it may have to go to court and may not. I've never had to been, subpoenaed to represent the station or anything like that. So I was very fortunate.
Okay, so this isn't quite the crazy battle scene in court that I think it is from most stations, like doing, having infractions or whatever.
No, it's not.
No.
In fact, now it's sort of like the cost of doing business. It's
Yeah.
a slap on the wrist. They give you a fine, unless it's really bad. It used to be, when I was at BZ, yeah, and I'm sitting in the control room. I've got the board in front of me. The talent is on the other side of the glass. It's like if you watch Frasier, right? I was Roz Doyle. So so he's doing the talking, and you're cueing him, and he's got a caller, and the caller says, "Boop," and your job is you've got two JBL speakers hanging from the ceiling on chains, and the one on the left is what's happening live, and the one on the right is the 7-second delay at the transmitter. Right? So your job is to hear blah 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 blah, and then you hit the button and you get the first syllable out there. So everybody in the audience heard what the guy said without the infraction.
Oh, it's more than just blanking it out. It's making it happen
Right.
on
Right.
air.
Right. There's that razor's edge between legal and illegal. And the tighter you can get it, the better.
Oh, that's great. That was somebody's whole job.
Yep. That was one of my jobs. Now you got to understand, while you're doing that, and I'm not patting myself on the back, I'm just educating all of you. While you're doing that, you're also checking off the program log. You've got to make sure that the talent did all of the commercials for the hour. All right. Doesn't leave them over for the next hour for the next guy. Um, you're taking your transmitter readings. I did have one time that the tower lights went out, and I did have to call the FAA for BZ. This, and then
How did that phone call go?
oh yeah, it was fun because you don't know, it went smooth, but it's one of those things. If you've never called the FAA and you're a 20 something and you're at Westinghouse, you don't know what the drill is. You have no idea what they're going to ask. You give them the GPS coordinates, and they go, "Yeah, okay, no problem. We'll call Logan and we'll take care of it. No sweat."
Appreciate it. What was your name again? Got it. No
Right.
problem.
Mum.
Call you
And
if we need you.
yeah. And like I had one of the air talent, it was my first night with this particular talent. I won't give his name. He was he turned out to be a nice guy, but boy, he when he walked in, he rode me. He was like, I need you to get the president on the phone in the next 10 minutes. We're going to interview him. I'm like, what? Yeah, the president. The president of the United States. Yeah, he's in Bitburg, West Germany. Get him on the blower. I mean, this is the type of shenanigans that went on. This is daily occurrence.
Did you get him on the horn?
What number? What are you talking about?
Did you get him?
No.
Oh.
No. It turned out
I was waiting for it.
No, he was pulling my leg. He was just, he was being to show authority. But then we laughed about it later at the end of the show. He's like, I was just funning you. I'm like,
Oh,
no,
that's
I
great.
didn't know. I'm sweating buckets here, Yeah.
So no ham radio up until this point, right?
Ham radio began when I was working for Dr. Ritchie, when I got my tech license. And then later on, and this is all kind of around the same time, it's within 3 or 4 years of each other, I taught summer session at Phillips Academy in Andover, and I taught radio. And they had a ham radio club. And so I rubbed elbows with those people and saw how that worked. And it was very quiet. It was pretty much non-existent because it was summer session. But I got to see how it worked, and 2 and 2 go together. And I ended up buying a 2-meter kit from Dick Smith Electronics in Australia. And I put that together and put it in the car. And the next thing I know, I'm hearing the Going Home show on the Waltham machine. And And those guys were all engineers from Raytheon. Oh man, that was fabulous because you got to hear the behind the scenes. We built this, but da da da, and
I
we're going to
haven't heard
talk to
that
the
brand name in a
astronauts and
long
spaceship.
time.
Raytheon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
That
yeah.
was real
Uh-huh.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got Lincoln Labs from MIT. I mean, it's all right there. And that's where these geeks hung out. They were on that one machine. So and I didn't talk. I'm just listening and I'm taking notes. I'm like, wow, this is like the Mecca, you know?
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. So that's where ham radio for me started. So it's a fusion of stuff. So the broadcasting side goes on pause. I do more radio engineering. Um, and the ham radio is two-way. I'm a no-code tech. And then I'm an engineer for a 4 combo station here on the Cape.
That's what I want to talk about.
I got two
Yeah.
50 kilowatts, 6 kilowatt, and a 3 kilowatt, and they're all FMs. And 9/11 happens, and I'm a no-code tech. Well, we all know where we were and what happened. It's a day that it's in indelible ink in our heads. And anyway, so I could talk for 2 hours on that, but I won't. There. When that happened, it really made an impact in me as far as ham radio goes. The other stuff is very obvious, but what's not obvious is the ham radio stuff. Because here I am, I have the ability and the responsibility to keep those 4 stations on the air and compliant and do immediate repairs. I got a call at 3 o'clock in the morning. This one's off the air. Off you go. And yet I can't talk on 100 watts on HF because I'm not licensed. And that's what really burnt my bridge. And I'm like, darn it, I have to get. And at that time, you had to get the code. It was only 5 words a minute, but I hated the code, and that was my problem. So I buckled down, and I kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and finally, I got an appointment to take the test, and I struggled with the code. I didn't get the questions in the code. They give you a QSO, and then they have you fill out what is the call sign of the station who's sending, what is the call sign of the station receiving, what's his weather like, all that. I messed up on that. But what I did get was, I don't know what the range was. It was something like 20 characters in a row that was perfect. And the VE says, yep, you passed your code. Okay, so now take the general exam. Well, I breezed through that because it's all stuff I'd been doing. And they wanted to go home at that point. And I said, no, everybody don't leave. Nobody leave, right? I'm taking the extra.
This might happen, right?
Yeah, I'm taking and they're like, okay, all right, we'll humor you. And I passed. So I went from no code tech to extra in one sitting. I'm not bragging, but I was lucky.
No.
I was
Yeah,
really lucky.
That almost never happens.
Right.
That's absolutely.
And then I'm off and running. Then I'm on HF and I'm having a blast.
What happened there after you just blasted through to extra? Like at the table with the VEs, like what was it? What was that atmosphere like?
Oh, they were all giving each other high fives and patting me on the back, and it was fun. And and I went home and I pretty much shook in my chair. I'm like, I can't believe I did that. And then you have to wait, to get the actual paperwork from Washington, and it comes eventually, and you go, wow. Wow. Right. And then you're on HF. Now, I had at the time, my first HF radio was a Kenwood 520, and it was a basket case. I paid $100 for it. It was owned by a former CBer who had changed all the crystals in it. And it was in pieces. It was in a box. It was literally in pieces, and it didn't work. And he dared me. And he said, you can have it for $100 because I know you'll never get it running. And I did.
Boy,
and it was a blast. That was my first, and I'll never forget it.
The Kenwood TS520.
Yeah. Hmm.
What a big beautiful radio.
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
So that, they say you never forget your first time. That was my first time. That
Oh
was my
man,
520.
that's
And
phew.
yeah. And then I ended up designing modifications for it. And at the
That sounds like
time,
looks like you've got all the room in the world inside of that
you
chassis.
do. You see, those are radios that you can work on. There's no surface mount, none of that. There's three tubes in it. There's regular transistors, regular FETs, real components. You can put your soldering iron in it and fix it. And a plug if you watch Terry, who's over at something labs. I'm just drawing a blank right now. I can see him and I can't think of it. I've given him a lot of the mods that I personally designed for the TS530 and the TS830. These are audio mods that make it go from 300. It's normally 300 to 3000 is the audio response. Well, after you do these mods, it sounds like a flex. It goes down to 50 hertz. It's a lot of the
Excellent.
stuff that I borrowed from the broadcast industry. I changed the processor around, the IF shift. I make it work in transmit mode. It unlocks, and that started a business for me. I used to run d104mods.com, and I would modify the D104 microphone. And I like to say that I gave a little competition to Bob Heil, but so um, I ended up buying the last set of crystal elements. You couldn't get them anymore; they were unobtainium. But I designed the preamp for it, and it sounded superb. A lot of the AM boat anchor guys used it, and like that. So it started with the D104, and then it went to the Kenwood radios and the 830, and its smaller brother, the 530. And boy, I got those things to play. And I know they're old and they're antiques now, but you know what? They have a sound, and it's like going from solid state to tubes. They have a richness. It's a subtle thing. I'm going to make an analogy. It's like chicken versus duck. The duck is richer. There's a difference to it, and that's why you pay more money for it. And the 830 was the same versus the newer stuff like the 7300. It sounds okay.
Yeah, it
It's
gets the job done.
it gets the job done. The receive to me is not as good as it could be, but for its price range, remember the dollar is all devalued now. So if you can find one of these older radios and go through it, I'll tell you, it's a solid performer. It's manual. It's not like driving an automatic. You push a button and off you go. But I think that's half of the fun, is turning all the controls and seeing what they do.
I agree. And for most of us, we don't even need the manual to operate our radios. When we get them, we open them up, we
Right.
plug them in, and all of a sudden we're just kind of like one with the radio, and everything's almost self-explanatory. Very
Yep.
few people, I think, in the ham world, we kind of struggle with such a thing. But your I noticed that we skipped over the engineering
Oh,
area,
okay.
which I'm sure we could talk about in its own podcast all alone.
Sure.
Because I know that was kind of you were mentioning that was kind of a time for you because of the 9/11 event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so we could probably talk about that engineering side all in its own podcast. But could
Mm-hmm.
you
Sure.
could you share one of your favorite ham stories, like some kind of memorable contact or technical feat that you
Hmm.
that you love to throw out as just absolutely astounding work?
Uh, I have many ham contacts. They're all memorable. Nothing that really is earth-shattering. I mean, it is at the time. When you reach out to Kuwait or Russia or whatever, for the first time, and now it's like it's a walk in the park. But back when it first happens, it's like, yeah, that's pretty cool, and it's 100 watts. And then you realize, what if I turn the power down? How far does it still go? I mean, we're lucky today. We have all these online SDRs, and you can see the signal, and you can see how clean the signal is, and where's it going, and whisper, and all that jazz. How far does 1 watt actually go when Mother Nature blows the wind in the right direction? It goes around the world. There's one guy I used to talk to from Spain, and I don't know what he was running, but I could hear his signal go around the globe at least once. There was an echo.
You got them. You got them from both ways, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It would go directly over me initially, and then it would go around and wrap around, and I'd hear it again.
But from long path and short path, what?
Yeah.
Here's a question. Um, you can only take one antenna for HF with you.
Oh, there's no competition. It's a doublet. It's a doublet fed with balanced line. Absolutely, because look at a doublet will go anywhere as long as it's long enough. It will work on its fundamental and all of the other bands higher in frequency. It will change direction. It starts feeding off of the ends. It's not going broadside anymore, but that's another thing we can get into later. But it will tune anywhere. And I used to be coax, and I ran a wire up between two trees and fed it off center fed with the 4-to-1 and this and that. It works, but it doesn't work as good as the doublet. And it's only on those certain bands, and you're forever chasing it. As you go up in the frequency, it fights you. There's a lot of other variables. Whereas this, you throw it up in the tree, you don't even cut it. There's no pruning. You turn the dial on the ATU, and boom, you're in. That's it, done.
I think the distinction here would be the random wires of today usually come with a transformer, right? We're just talking about wire antennas of random, and I think that those really need to be separated into two different categories.
Right.
I think the doublet with the magic of the ladder line definitely has a very very hard staple in the ham community. I think I own at least two of them that people have given me. I don't know why they're not up at their house right now. Absolutely mind-boggling, but
it's not the best antenna. It's the best for me.
Right.
So it's not that one size fits all. Try all of the antennas and see what plays best for you. But in my situation, that works great for me because I don't have a lot of height here. I'm right by the ocean, which is great. If you watch Salty Walt, I mean it's great for DX. But the problem is you don't have any height for the wire. And if a storm comes along, you've got to drop the wire. So, I've got limited height, and I toss a wire between two trees and I made my own ladder line, and that's that. And it goes right through the wall into the shack and into the back of the tuner. There's no balun. There's none of that.
No. Let's see.
But that's become a whole fun thing because, and let me just touch on this briefly because you had asked about the engineering thing.
Yeah.
There's a running joke for those that see me in the chat room, right? And I didn't come up with it, but I use it a lot. And the quote is, I only use resonant antennas, right? So there's a resonant antenna is only resonant at one frequency, not the band. It's one frequency in that band.
Right. It's not a band antenna.
It's silliness. Sure. Right. And but here's the real knowledge of this whole thing, and I want everybody to take this to heart from a broadcast engineer on not an FM, but on an AM tower. Most of the AM towers are not resonant. They are not 90 degrees or a quarter wave, as basic as most people would say. They're not a quarter wave tall. They might be a little more than a quarter wave. They might be a half wave. BZ has two half wave antennas.
They were going out for blood when they built
and
those.
And they're co-phased.
Oh,
it's a cardioid pattern. But here's the kicker. They're not exactly 180 degrees. They're not exactly half waves. They're like 188 degrees, because if you're a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, then you can feed power into it. It's easier on the tuner, okay? If it's exactly 180, then you're talking like, we always say in ham radio, we say it's 2,500 ohms. it could be around that area. And if you're not feeding 1,500 watts, you're feeding 50,000 watts. There's going to be an arc show, you know. So so the engineers decided that, hey, we're going to make it 9 degrees longer. So that won't suffer any as far as the radiation pattern goes, but it sure makes life easier when you match it. Because at 180 degrees, think of it like you're balancing a pencil on the tip of your finger. It's very unstable. If you feed power into a quarter wave, a 90-degree antenna, now it's like you're picking the pencil up by the end, by the eraser, right? So it's very stable. You can wiggle your hand, and the thing it sits there, vertical. It's very stable. Okay, so by adding those extra 6 or 9 degrees, it stabilizes things enough where you can handle that kind of power.
This is the same principle as the 5/8 wave antenna.
Right. So the
Right.
5/8 wave is so 4/8 is a half wave. So it's a little bit more. It's an eighth of a wave longer, right? So it'll be capacitive. You add an inductive coil to compensate for that capacitance. But it's easier to manage. A half wave is like the worst case scenario. It's very difficult to match to it.
Oh, I know. Absolutely.
And WABC 77 in New York that I mentioned before, there's also a half wave. KDKA in Pittsburgh at 1020 is I want to say it's 2 half waves, one on top of the other. It's called a Franklin antenna. So there's a loading coil in the middle, but it's 2 half waves. It's an enormous tower.
Franklin.
Yep.
What do you think's gonna become of the future of ham radio?
Oh, of ham radio, I think will always exist in one form or another. It may not be in the state that it is now, but you know what? In the 40s, I think the same argument was made then. We got Morse code, we've got this new slop bucket single sideband thing coming along, and that's the doom of ham radio. And here it is, 2025, and it's still here. So I think ham radio will always have a place. It will change. There will be things added to it. There'll be new technology. Look at SDRs, brand new. We had heterodyne radios, superhets from Armstrong, and now it's SDRs. I mean, that's mind blowing.
Yeah, they're $30 USB dongles.
Right.
Yeah.
There will be something else. There'll be other technology further down the road. I won't be around to see it, but there'll be stuff, and there'll still be the nostalgia of the old stuff. Just like you go to a museum and you see a spark gap transmitter. No, we're not using it on the air for obvious reasons, but we still keep them and we still have reverence for them, and it's fun. So I think it will always sit. Broadcasting, that I'm not sure about, because it costs an arm and 2 legs to keep the station on the air. For those that don't know, a 50,000 watt radio station, just the transmitter, consumes almost 100,000 watts out of the grid. And that's 24/7. And you can imagine the cost. It's mind-blowing. And very, very few people now are listening. Every day it's less and less and less and less and less. So they can't make any money. And that's why all these stations go online. Download the app, listen to us on your phone, because it doesn't cost money it does, but it's minuscule. It's 1% compared to running that big transmitter. And then you can sell the tower and the space. Back in the day, those were all cow pastures. They would throw away land. It's a swamp in the middle next to the beach, but it's a swamp. And you've got it's perfect for an AM tower, but nobody wants it. So it's pennies on the dollar. Now, hey, get rid of the tower. We're going to put condos in there. It's big money. So that's another reason why a lot of the stations are saying, you know what, cut the switch. We're done.
Do you think that that boom in power from all the transmitters, coming alive through the decades, do you think that was ever a talked about issue in the same way that we talk about the AI power consumption that we're having to face right now?
No, I don't think so because the AI consumes so much more because it's available to the average Joe. The radio transmitter, there's only people that have the license that can run them. So it's not every Tom, Dick, and Harry down the street has a 50 kilowatt transmitter that they're running.
I guess the conversation would be those that we've had this those that live near a transmitter and how
Okay.
they're affected with the power issues, power
Yeah.
delivery issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's the RF part of it, the exposure part of it. Although I would say they're both terribly safe. They're very, very safe. The AM
gotcha.
tower, you look at it and you go, well, the whole tower is radiating. Yeah, but you're only 6 feet tall. You're such a small fraction of the wavelength. Your body is absorbing such a little tiny amount. If you look at the FCC requirements that we all have to do now, for your own station, your own ham station, it's nothing. You can be, several feet away from the 160 meter antenna because your body is so small by comparison. Conversely, you're walking around with an HT on VHF, and where's the antenna? It's right next to your head, right next to your eyeballs. And that's why in the technician class, they educate you that, that can screw up your retina if you give it enough power. If you're working on the UHF transmitter, don't have it on while you take the cover off. Oh, look at the kaleidoscope. Wow, look at all those fancy colors. Yeah, I sadly I do know people that have done that, and they're in trouble. They're in big trouble.
Terrible.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
But if you respect it, it's like fire and electricity and the ocean. If you respect them, they can be your best friend. They can also be your worst enemy in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye. So you got to have the utmost respect and know what they're capable of doing. And that's it.
Is there anything else that you want to add in there for us, Hollywood? Something you didn't get to mention?
You get more chicks on the air being a talent. I don't know. Hey, listen, I'm flattered that you had me on the show. I appreciate it.
I think every ham radio operator just wrote that down right now.
Oh, yeah.
Be a talent on radio broadcast.
Yeah. And so, because I struggled with it, I was lucky. I had good breaks. I had good people around me. But, that's why I try to do, and I'm looking at the icon here for the show, and the last thing is the mentor. And so I just want to take 2 minutes on that, and that's why I try to do that now as much as I can, because that was done to me. So that's my way of paying back to society. If I see somebody that's remotely interested in ham radio, or they have questions, if they're already a ham, I can give them the answer, but that's sort of like giving them the fish and feeding them only for a day. And my job is I want to try to teach them how to fish. I want to get them inspired enough. Give them the goals, give them the help that they need, but guide them. Don't just give them, because I hear this a lot. Well, how do I sound now? Well, turn your processor to -10 and put your, that's fine, but that only applies to that one situation, that microphone, that one radio. I'd like to show why does it do it. So it doesn't, once you learn it, then you can go to any radio and make it sound good. And that's audio, that's antennas, that's everything. It's everything. It's all the same. I enjoy teaching. If it hasn't come across yet, I mean, I do enjoy it because I like the payoff for the teacher is when you see the light on the student's head go off and they go, holy cow, I got it. Then they're off and running. And then they want to teach their friends.
Running, right? Running's one thing, but is it that moment that they that they start flying, that you don't hear from them as often anymore.
There's that. Yeah. But you know what? That's good. That's a compliment. See, a lot of people look at that and they go, well, the student left, and I never get to hear from them anymore. That it's sort of like being a parent. You want the kid to grow up and be self-sufficient and on their own. That's the goal, not for them to be dependent on you. So as a teacher, that's really the goal. You want the student to get the lesson good enough that even better that they could replace you someday. That's really the ultimate goal. It's rare, but it does happen,
As long as we all can believe that that is truly the goal, it should
Yeah.
it should have a continual cycle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And if you've had a great teacher in your life and they're still around, contact them, send them a letter, send them a nice card. Thank you. It means the world. It really, truly does. I remember going back and visiting some of the teachers that I have, and I can count them on one hand. There are very few that were really exceptional. But I went out of my way to say thank you. And they melted. You could see it in their eyes. They melted. They were like, wow.
Contact your Elmer kids.
Yep.
Hollywood, I really do appreciate you taking an hour out to
Hey, this was
answer a
blast.
few of my questions, man. That's
Sure.
that's a whole lot of information that I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch maybe a time or two and get a nice timeline. Maybe
Absolutely.
Maybe next time we can talk
And
more about.
we just touched on the tip of the iceberg. So if there's more questions in future that you have or the audience has, contact Ziggy, make up a list. I'm happy to answer them.
Hollywood, thank you again, man. I can't tell you how much fun this has been.
Yay!
Everybody, thanks for watching. I'm gonna hit the button. Have a great evening.
See ya.
7-5.